In the shadow of the Dragoon Mountains, where the Arizona Territory stretched vast and unforgiving, Dr. Eleanor Blackwood pressed a cold cloth to little Maggie O'Sullivan's forehead. The child's fever had finally broken after 3 days of delirium that had the whole settlement of Willow Creek holding its breath. Eleanor whispered a silent prayer of thanks, not to any god, but to the precise combination of willow bark, elderflower, and medical knowledge that had saved another life. 6 months in this dust-blown outpost, and still the whispers followed her like vultures circling overhead. Too fancy for her own good. Woman doctors unnatural. Think she's better than regular folk. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. "She'll be just fine now, Mrs. O'Sullivan," Eleanor said, tucking her stethoscope, a marvel of modern medicine that had earned her nothing but suspicion, back into her leather medical bag. "Keep her drinking water with a pinch of salt until her appetite returns." Martha O'Sullivan clutched Eleanor's hand, tears streaming down her weathered face. "God bless you, doctor. I don't care what they say about you." Eleanor's smile remained professional, though the words stung like salt in an open wound. She slipped her hand free gently and packed away her medicines, each in its labeled glass bottle. "Just doing my duty, ma'am." Outside, the autumn sun cast long shadows across Willow Creek's single dusty street. Eleanor pulled her shawl tighter against the evening chill, keenly aware of the eyes watching from the mercantile porch, from behind curtained windows, from the saloon where men sought comfort in whiskey and judgment. "Doc Blackwood, Sheriff." Miller's voice boomed from across the street. He was striding toward her, his usually stoic face creased with urgency. "Need you at the jail. It's Hank Peterson. Took a knife in a card game." Eleanor nodded crisply, already calculating what she might need. How deep? Bleeding like a stuck pig. Doc Hampton refused to see him. Of course he had. Dr. Hampton, the town's only other physician, a man who'd earned his medical knowledge through a correspondence course and the amputation of gangrenous limbs during the war between the states, had made it abundantly clear that Eleanor's Harvard education was an abomination against the natural order. The jail cell smelled of iron, both from the bars and from the blood seeping between Hank Peterson's fingers as he clutched his side. The town drunk and occasional horse thief lay on the narrow cot, his face ashen beneath his untrimmed beard. "Move your hands, Mr. Peterson," Eleanor instructed, pulling on gloves. "Don't want no woman touching me." Hank slurred, his eyes glassy, with pain and whatever rotgut whiskey had fueled the knife fight. Sheriff Miller stepped forward. "You'll let the doctor help you, or you can bleed out waiting for Doc Hampton to change his mind about treating criminals." Hank's hands fell away, revealing a 3-inch slash between his ribs. Eleanor assessed it with a clinical eye. Not fatal, if cleaned properly. She opened her bag, removed a bottle of carbolic acid solution, and began preparing to suture. "What kind of witchcraft you planning, Doc?" Hank's eyes widened at her surgical tools. "The kind that keeps infection from killing you," she replied evenly, though her patience was wearing thin. "Sheriff, I'll need you to hold him still." As she worked, her mind drifted to Boston, to the hushed halls of medical school where she'd fought twice as hard to earn half the respect of her male counterparts, then to her father's disapproving face when she'd announced her intention to head west. "The frontier needs doctors," she'd told him. "People are dying for lack of modern medicine." She hadn't expected those same people to prefer dying to being treated by a woman who knew more than her place allowed. The wound closed neatly under her skilled hands. 23 stitches, each one perfect, though perfection earned her no. "Your friends here." Eleanor cut the last thread as Sheriff Miller watched with unconcealed admiration. "That's mighty fine work, Doc." Just proper technique, she said, packing her tools away. Check for fever tomorrow. Change the bandage twice daily with this solution. She handed him a small bottle. And keep him away from cards and whiskey. For at least a week, Sheriff Miller chuckled. Easier to stop the sun from rising. Outside, twilight had settled over Willow Creek. The mountains loomed black against the indigo sky as Eleanor made her way to her small cabin at the edge of town. Past the church where Reverend Wallace preached against women who forsook their natural duties. Past the schoolhouse, where children were taught that a woman's highest calling was homemaking. Past Dr. Hampton's office, where a sign proclaimed, "Real medical care in an obvious slight." The isolation wouldn't have bothered her if it had been just the townspeople. Eleanor had expected resistance. What she hadn't expected was how the land itself seemed to reject her methods, how infections spread despite her meticulous antiseptic techniques, how patients still died despite her best efforts, how the harsh climate and strange diseases of the territory confounded her Boston training. Her cabin door creaked open to reveal her sparse home. Medical texts stacked neatly beside her bed. Dried herbs hanging from the rafters, a letter from the medical college half-written on her small desk. No fire in the hearth, no warm food waiting. The silence of the place pressed in on her like a physical weight. Eleanor lit a lamp and slumped into her single chair, exhaustion washing over her. She'd saved 2 lives today. Back east, that would have earned respect, perhaps even acclaim. In medical circles, here, it barely earned tolerance. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Eleanor frowned. No one came calling at this hour unless there was an emergency. She opened the door to find Martha O'Sullivan clutching a covered dish. "Brought you some supper, Doctor," Martha said, pushing the dish forward. "Chicken and dumplings. To thank you for Maggie." Before Eleanor could respond, voices called from the street, "Martha, get away from there." Eleanor recognized Ben Wallace, the blacksmith, and his wife. Their son had died of scarlet fever 2 months ago, despite Eleanor's desperate attempts to save him. They'd blamed her foreign methods for his death. "She's a godless woman playing at a man's profession," Mrs. Wallace shouted. "No decent person should associate with her." Martha faltered, looking between Eleanor and the gathering crowd. Then, to Eleanor's surprise, she straightened her spine. "My Maggie's alive because of Dr. Blackwood," Martha called back. "When your Timmy got sick, you wouldn't let her try her medicines, Esther Wallace. You listened to Doc Hampton and his bloodletting." "Nonsense! Maybe if you hadn't been so stubborn. How dare you?" Mrs. Wallace surged forward, only held back by her husband's grip on her arm. Martha turned back to Eleanor, pressed the dish into her hands, and whispered, "Some of us are grateful, Doctor. But be careful. They're looking for reasons to run you out." As Martha hurried away, Eleanor closed her door against the hostile stares. She placed the still warm dish on her table, the unexpected kindness causing her throat to tighten. She was used to resistance, but the intensity of it here in Willow Creek was wearing her down. Outside, another commotion drew her attention to the window. Through the wavering lamplight, she saw several riders entering town. Unusual at this hour. They weren't cowboys or miners, judging by their silhouettes. As they passed beneath the light of the saloon, Eleanor caught her breath. Apache scouts, leading a military detachment. And strapped to one of the horses was a figure wrapped in blankets, clearly injured or ill. Eleanor grabbed her medical bag. Whatever the town thought of her, they couldn't deny she was the only doctor likely to help an Apache or a soldier at this hour. As she stepped outside into the gathering darkness, she couldn't know that this arrival would change everything, challenging, not just how Willow Creek saw her, but how she understood medicine itself. The Apache scouts dismounted with fluid grace that belied their weariness. Eleanor hurried toward them, medical bag clutched tightly. Lieutenant James Cooper, a man who'd come to her twice before for treatment, valuing results over propriety, dismounted. From his dun horse, Dr. Blackwood, he called, relief evident in his voice. "Thank God you're here." "What happened?" Eleanor asked, already assessing the blanket-wrapped figure being lowered from the horse. The lieutenant's face was grave beneath his dust-caked stubble. "Patrol found a stagecoach attacked 20 miles south. Everyone dead except this woman. Apache scouts were tracking the raiders when they found us." Eleanor knelt beside the unconscious woman. Her breath caught, not at the vicious scalp wound that had matted the woman's dark hair with blood, but at her clothing. A black leather medical bag, similar to Eleanor's own, lay beside her. "She's a doctor," Eleanor whispered, finding the woman's pulse. Thready but present. Lieutenant Cooper nodded. "Lieutenant Cooper. Dr. Margaret Chen, from San Francisco. Papers in her bag say she was heading to Fort Bowie to treat an outbreak of something." An older Apache scout approached, his weathered face impassive, but his eyes sharp as he studied Eleanor. "Woman healer," he said in accented English, gesturing to the unconscious doctor, then to Eleanor. "2 woman healers." "Yes, Nijoni, 2 women doctors," the lieutenant confirmed. "This is Nijoni, Dr. Blackwood, best tracker in the territory." Nijoni's gaze was unsettling in its intensity. "She dies soon without strong medicine." Eleanor refused to be intimidated. "Get her to my cabin, now." As they carried Dr. Chen, Eleanor caught snippets of conversation from the gathering crowd. 2 of them now. Chinese woman doctor. What next? Bringing Apache right into town. Sheriff Miller pushed through. "What's all this commotion?" Eleanor explained quickly as they continued. Toward her cabin. The sheriff frowned at the Apache scouts, but nodded. "I'll keep folks from interfering, Doctor, but these Indians need to camp outside town." "Nijoni stays," Eleanor said firmly. "He found her. He might know something that could help." Inside her cabin, they cleared her desk, placing Dr. Chen on the makeshift examination table. Eleanor worked methodically, cleaning the scalp wound, checking for fractures, monitoring breathing. "Pupils uneven," she murmured. "Brain swelling likely." Nijoni watched from the corner, silent but attentive, as Eleanor prepared a tincture of willow bark for fever and pain. "You use plant medicine," he observed after several minutes. Eleanor glanced up. "Yes, some of it anyway. But not right plants. For head wounds," she bristled. "I'm using standard medical treatments for cranial trauma." Nijoni moved to the window where moonlight streamed in. "Head wounds need devil's claw root. Moon is right tonight. Makes medicine stronger." "Lieutenant." Cooper cleared his throat. "Dr. Blackwood is a trained physician, Nijoni." Eleanor paused, needle poised to stitch the scalp wound. "Devil's claw? You mean unicorn plant?" Nijoni nodded. "And sacred datura, small amount only. Too much brings death visions." Eleanor knew. Datura, a dangerous hallucinogen that could kill in high doses. Medical journals dismissed it as primitive folk remedy. Yet something in Nijoni's certainty gave her pause. "I don't have those plants," she admitted. "I find." Without waiting for permission, Nijoni slipped out into the night. Eleanor continued working, administering smelling salts, checking vital signs. The lieutenant hovered nearby. "Will she live, Doctor?" "I don't know," Eleanor admitted. "Head injuries are unpredictable. All we can do is reduce swelling and wait." The door opened again. Sheriff Miller entered with Dr. Hampton, whose florid face darkened at the sight of Eleanor bent over the patient. "I'll take over now," Hampton announced, as if conferring a favor. Eleanor straightened. "That won't be necessary. I have the situation well in hand." Hampton's mustache twitched. "This is now a matter of public safety. Foreign doctor, Indian attack. The town council wants someone trustworthy in charge." "She wasn't attacked by Indians," Lieutenant Cooper interjected. "Those Apache scouts helped rescue her. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Hampton ignored him, addressing the sheriff. "Miller, You know having Indians in town violates ordinances. And harboring a Chinese woman, Dr. Chen is American. Eleanor interrupted, her patience evaporating. And my patient, not anymore. Hampton stepped forward. Sheriff, remove Dr. Blackwood if necessary. Eleanor planted herself between Hampton and the unconscious woman. Touch my patient, and I'll have Lieutenant Cooper arrest you for interfering with emergency medical treatment. The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Sheriff Miller looked uncomfortable, gaze shifting between the doctors. Hampton, he finally said, Army brought her to Dr. Blackwood. Let's leave it that way for now. Hampton's face purpled. I'll be speaking to the town council about this. He stormed out, the door banging behind him. The sheriff sighed. You're not making life easier for yourself, Eleanor. I'm not here for an easy life. I'm here to save lives. After the sheriff left, Eleanor turned back to her patient, hands trembling slightly from the confrontation. Lieutenant Cooper touched her shoulder gently. That was brave, he said quietly. Eleanor shook her head. That was necessary. She checked Dr. Chen's pulse again. I need to prepare more tinctures. Would you stay with her? Of course. Of course. Outside, Eleanor leaned against her cabin wall, drawing deep breaths of the cold night air. Stars scattered across the vast Arizona sky, indifferent to human struggles below. She could hear townsfolk gathered at the saloon, voices raised in heated discussion. About her, no doubt. Movement in the darkness startled her. Nijoni appeared carrying a small buckskin pouch. Found medicine plants, he said, offering the pouch. Need to prepare special way. Eleanor hesitated. Everything she'd been taught at Harvard warned against native superstitions. Yet conventional medicine offered little for severe head trauma beyond basic care. Show me, she finally said. Inside, Nijoni crouched beside the small hearth, grinding the plants with river stones he'd also collected. He worked with precise movements, chanting softly under his breath. What are you saying? Eleanor asked, fascinated despite her scientific skepticism. Asking plant spirits for healing power, he replied matter-of-factly. Plants must be asked. Properly. Lieutenant Cooper raised an eyebrow but said nothing as Nijoni mixed the ground herbs with water heated to a specific temperature. Not boiling, but steaming. Apply to wound, he instructed Eleanor. Then give small amount to drink. Eleanor hesitated. Datura is poisonous in the wrong dose. This is right dose, Nijoni said simply. I have healed many head wounds. The rational part of Eleanor's mind, it protested. This wasn't sterile, it wasn't scientific, it wasn't what she'd spent years learning. Yet Dr. Chen's breathing had grown more labored, her skin clammy. Eleanor made her decision. She carefully applied the poultice to the wound after cleaning it again, then administered a few drops of the liquid between Dr. Chen's lips. Now we wait, Nijoni said, settling cross-legged in the corner. And I will tell you why Apache raiders did not kill this woman, Doctor. Eleanor looked up sharply. What do you mean? Apache did not attack Stagecoach. Apache would not leave Medicine Woman alive, take only hair part. This was done by white men dressed as Apache. Lieutenant Cooper leaned forward. Are you certain? Nijoni's expression remained impassive. Tracks tell true story, bootprints not moccasins, horse tracks deep, horses wore metal shoes, and this. He reached into his shirt and withdrew a brass button. From cavalry uniform, old, but still shiny. Eleanor and Cooper exchanged glances. Why would white men disguised as Apache attack a stagecoach carrying a doctor to Fort Bowie? She asked. What outbreak was Dr. Chen traveling to treat? Nijoni asked. Lieutenant Cooper frowned. Her papers mentioned smallpox. Nijoni nodded. Slowly. Some men profit from sickness, especially sickness that kills Indian people. The implications hung in the air like gun smoke. Eleanor's mind raced. Could someone deliberately be spreading disease? It seemed monstrous, Yet she knew history was filled with such atrocities. A soft moan from Dr. Chen interrupted her thoughts. Eleanor hurried to the woman's side, checking her pupils. To her amazement, they were more responsive. "The swelling seems to be reducing," she murmured. Nijoni nodded, unsurprised. "Medicine is working." Through the night, they maintained vigil. Eleanor documented everything in her journal: pulse rates, respiration, pupillary response, alongside notes about Nijoni's treatments. The scientific part of her needed to understand how these plants affected brain swelling. Near dawn, Dr. Chen's eyes fluttered open. Confusion gave way to fear as she tried to sit up. "Easy," Eleanor soothed. "You're safe. I'm Dr. Eleanor Blackwood." "My bag," Dr. Chen whispered hoarsely. "Where is—" "Right here," Lieutenant Cooper assured her, bringing the medical bag into view. Dr. Chen relaxed slightly, then noticed Nijoni. Something passed between them, a look of recognition that surprised Eleanor. "Apache medicine man," Dr. Chen murmured. "You used plant medicine?" Eleanor nodded. "Combined approaches. Your injury was severe." A ghost of a smile touched Dr. Chen's lips. "My father would approve. He was traditional Chinese doctor." Her eyes fluttered closed again, but her breathing was steadier now. As sunrise painted the Dragoon Mountains gold, Eleanor stepped outside for fresh air. The town was waking, shopkeepers opening, children heading to school, and gathered outside her cabin, a small crowd watched silently. At their head stood Reverend Wallace, Dr. Hampton, and Mayor Collins. Their expressions made their purpose clear. The town had made its decision about Eleanor Blackwood and her unorthodox medicine. Mayor Collins stepped forward, thumbs hooked in his vest pockets, a pose he adopted whenever making pronouncements. Behind him, the morning sun cast long shadows across Willow Creek's main street, transforming the gathered townspeople into looming specters. "Dr. Blackwood," he began, his voice carrying the practiced resonance of a man accustomed to public speaking, "it has come to our attention that you've brought dangerous elements into our community." Eleanor's spine stiffened. "If you mean Dr. Chen, she's a victim of a stagecoach attack. If you mean Lieutenant Cooper's men, they're U.S. Army soldiers who rescued her." Reverend Wallace stepped forward, Bible clutched to his chest like a shield. "We're referring to the savage you've allowed into your home, conducting heathen rituals over a patient." "Nijoni is an Apache scout working with the army," Eleanor countered, "and his knowledge of medicinal plants may have saved Dr. Chen's life." Dr. Hampton snorted. "Superstitious nonsense. No reputable physician would resort to such quackery." Eleanor felt heat rise in her cheeks. Interesting position from a man whose primary treatments still include bloodletting and mercury compounds. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Hampton's face darkened. "The town council met in emergency session last night," Mayor Collins continued, ignoring the exchange. "We've come to a decision. Your presence in Willow Creek has become untenable. You're evicting me for saving a life." Eleanor's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "We're asking you to practice your unorthodox methods elsewhere," Collins replied. "Your lease on this cabin is terminated, effective immediately." Eleanor glanced back at her door, thinking of Dr. Chen inside, of the herbs drying from her rafters, of the small life she'd built here despite everything. "My patient cannot be moved. Then she can remain under Dr. Hampton's care," the mayor said firmly. The cabin door opened behind Eleanor. Lieutenant Cooper stepped out, his military bearing a stark contrast to the rumpled civilians. "Mayor Collins," he said, touching the brim of his hat in minimal courtesy, "Dr. Blackwood is currently providing emergency medical care to a federal employee on assignment to Fort Bowie. Interfering with that care could be considered obstruction of government business." Collins hesitated, clearly unprepared for this angle. Dr. Hampton wasn't deterred. The woman can be transported to my clinic. I'll take responsibility for her care." "With all due respect," Cooper replied, his tone suggesting minimal respect indeed. "Dr. Chen's treatment requires specific knowledge of her current condition and medication. Moving her would pose unnecessary risk." "And what about the Indian?" someone called from the crowd. "Town ordinance says no Indians inside city limits after sundown." Nijoni appeared in the doorway behind Cooper, his weathered face impassive, as he surveyed the hostile gathering. To Eleanor's surprise, he smiled slightly. "I leave soon," he said calmly, "but first must speak with woman doctor." He looked directly at Eleanor. "Alone." The crowd's murmuring grew louder. Eleanor felt the weight of their judgment, their fear, their stubborn ignorance pressing against her like a physical force. Yet something in Nijoni's expression made her decision clear. "Lieutenant Cooper," she said, "would you remain with Dr. Chen? I need a private word with Nijoni." Without waiting for the town's reaction, she stepped back inside, Nijoni following. Once inside, away from prying eyes, Eleanor's composure cracked. She pressed her palms against her desk to stop their trembling. "They're going to force me out," she said quietly. Nijoni studied her, his dark eyes reflecting the morning light from the window. "This place not ready for your medicine, too afraid of what they don't understand." He reached into his shirt and pulled out a small object wrapped in buckskin. "Apache people also afraid at first, but we learn." He unwrapped the package, revealing a small, intricately carved stone bear. "My grandmother was healer. She say bear medicine strongest when shared. She give this to me when I begin learning plant ways. Now I give to you." Eleanor stared at the offering. "I can't accept this, not gift," Nijoni corrected. "Message. Where mountains touch sky, north of here, lives old woman, Nayenesgani, great healer, half Apache, half Mexican. She teach me medicine. Ways she teach you too. You want me to seek out an Apache healer. You save other woman doctor with Apache medicine. Now you learn more." His expression softened slightly. "Your Harvard medicine good for some sickness, not good for all sickness. Especially not sickness of this land, not sick." Eleanor thought of her cases over the past 6 months, the strange fevers that didn't respond to standard treatments, the wound infections that defied her antiseptic techniques, the babies who failed to thrive despite her best efforts. "These people won't let me practice here regardless," she said, glancing toward the window where shadows moved across the curtains. "So you go where medicine needed." Nijoni placed the stone bear on her desk. "Nayanesgani lives 3 days ride north, in canyon where 3 rivers meet. Army men no place." A soft moan from Dr. Chen interrupted them. Eleanor moved quickly to her patient's side. The woman's eyes were open, clearer than before. "Water," Dr. Chen whispered. As Eleanor held a cup to her lips, Dr. Chen's gaze shifted to Nijoni. "You use devil's claw, I can smell it." Nijoni nodded. "And sacred datura, small amount." "My father combined traditional Chinese medicine with Western training," Dr. Chen said, her voice strengthening. "He always said, medicine is medicine, regardless of origin." Eleanor checked her pulse, stronger, steadier. "You need to rest." "The vaccination samples," Dr. Chen suddenly gripped Eleanor's wrist with surprising strength. "In my bag, hidden compartment. They must reach Fort Bowie." "They will," Eleanor assured her. "Lieutenant Cooper can—" "No." Dr. Chen's eyes were intense. "You must take them. The stagecoach attack wasn't random. Someone doesn't want these vaccines to reach the Apache reservations." Eleanor and Nijoni exchanged glances. "The lieutenant mentioned smallpox," Eleanor said carefully. Dr. Chen nodded weakly. "Outbreak at the reservation, but someone's deliberately spreading it. These vaccines, only hope." The door burst open before Eleanor could respond. Dr. Hampton entered, followed by Sheriff Miller looking apologetic and Mayor Collins looking self-important. Time's up, Dr. Blackwood, Hampton announced. Sheriff will escort you to gather your belongings while I examine the patient. Eleanor squared her shoulders. My patient is awake and communicative. Moving her now would be dangerous. I'll be the judge of that. Hampton pushed past her toward Dr. Chen. What happened next stunned everyone in the room. Dr. Chen's hand shot out, grabbing Hampton's wrist. Your fingernail have dirt under them, she said, her voice weak but determined. No doctor should examine wounds with dirty hands. Hampton jerked away as if burned. How dare you? Dr. Chen's gaze shifted to Eleanor. I want Dr. Blackwood to continue my care. See here, Mayor Collins blustered. This is a town matter. Actually, Lieutenant Cooper interrupted from the doorway. It's a federal matter now. He held up a telegram form. I sent a rider to the telegraph office at Fort Huachuca last night. Just received a response from Fort Bowie. Dr. Chen's mission is considered vital to military operations. She and her attending physician, that would be Dr. Blackwood, are to be afforded all necessary assistance. Sheriff Miller removed his hat, running fingers through his thinning hair. Well, that changes things. It changes nothing, Hampton snapped. This town has ordinances, which don't supersede federal authority, Cooper finished smoothly. Mayor Collins, I'm sure you don't want the Army to report that Willow Creek interfered with a matter of territorial security. Collins paled slightly, political instincts warring with local prejudices. How long until she can be moved? At least 3 days, Eleanor replied, watching Dr. Chen's eyes drift closed again. You have 3 days, Collins pronounced, as if it had been his idea all along. Then both doctors leave Willow Creek, permanently. After they departed, Eleanor sank into her chair, exhaustion washing over her. 3 days. 3 days to pack up her life, to ensure Dr. Chen was stable enough for travel, to determine her next steps. You go to Nyanesgani, Nijoni said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. Take other woman doctor when she's stronger. Take vaccines to Apache people. Eleanor looked up at him. Why me? Why not take the vaccines yourself? Nijoni's expression was solemn. Because Apache need more than vaccines. Need doctor who understands. Both worlds. Need doctor who not afraid to learn new ways. Lieutenant Cooper cleared his throat from the doorway. The Apache reservation is a 3-day ride from here. Dangerous country, especially with raiders about. You have soldiers, Eleanor pointed out, being recalled to Fort Bowie, Cooper admitted. Orders just came through with that telegram. But I could arrange an escort for you as far as the mountains. Eleanor glanced at Dr. Chen, sleeping again, but with healthier color in her cheeks. Then at her medical bag, at the textbooks that had formed her understanding of healing, at the herbs Nijoni had introduced her to. I'll need 2 horses, she said finally. Supplies for a week, and I'll need to examine Dr. Chen's vaccines to ensure they weren't damaged. Cooper nodded, something like admiration in his eyes. I'll make arrangements. That evening, as shadows lengthened across her small cabin, Eleanor carefully opened the hidden compartment in Dr. Chen's medical bag. Inside lay 6 small glass vials, miraculous protection against one of humanity's greatest scourges, nestled in padded cotton. Those save many lives, Nijoni observed from beside her. If we reach the reservation in time, Eleanor agreed. Dr. Chen stirred on the cot where she rested. You'll need instructions on administering them. You should rest, Eleanor advised. Dr. Chen's smile was wan but determined. I've rested enough, and you need to know what we're really facing, she explained in halting sentences. The outbreak that had already claimed dozens of lives on the reservation, the suspiciously convenient timing after land negotiations had stalled, the evidence suggesting deliberate infection of trading goods. The army officially denies any possibility of intentional spread, Dr. Chen concluded. But Fort Bowie's commander quietly requested vaccination from San Francisco, and someone tried to ensure it never arrived. Eleanor finished the thought. But why target a doctor? Why not simply destroy the vaccines? Dr. Chen's expression darkened. Because I'm also carrying documentation, evidence linking certain territorial officials to blankets taken from smallpox wards in Denver. The implications chilled Eleanor to the bone. Biological warfare conducted against people already pushed to the margins of their ancestral lands. Who can we trust? She asked. Lieutenant Cooper, Dr. Chen replied without hesitation. And her. She nodded toward the door, where Martha O'Sullivan stood with a covered basket. Brought you ladies some supper, Martha said, setting the basket on the table. Her eyes darted nervously around the cabin. And information. Town council still meeting. They're planning something, even with the army telegram. Dr. Hampton's riled them up proper. Thank you, Martha, Eleanor said softly. After Martha left, Eleanor began methodically packing her essential medical supplies, adding Nijoni's herbs alongside her surgical instruments and medicines. You're really leaving, Dr. Chen observed. We both are, Eleanor replied, once you're strong enough to travel. To the reservation. First to find this healer Nijoni mentioned, Nyanisgani, then to deliver your vaccines. Dr. Chen's eyes held a mixture of curiosity and respect. Harvard-trained doctor seeking wisdom from an Apache healer. Most would consider that beneath them. Eleanor thought of her months in Willow Creek, of lives saved and lost, of the limitations of her training when faced with the realities of this harsh land. Medicine is medicine, she echoed Dr. Chen's earlier words, regardless of origin. Outside, the sun sank behind the Dragoon Mountains, painting the sky in fierce oranges and purples. In 3 days, Eleanor would leave this town that had never accepted her. But for the first time since arriving in the territory, she felt a sense of purpose clearer than any she'd known, even in the hushed halls of Harvard Medical School. Her father had been wrong. The frontier didn't just need doctors, it needed healers who could bridge worlds. And somewhere in the mountains ahead, an Apache woman waited to teach her how. Dawn broke cold and clear on Eleanor's final day in Willow Creek. Frost rimmed the cabin windows, transforming her breath to mist as she methodically packed her remaining possessions. Medical journals, carefully wrapped instruments, the few personal items she couldn't bear to leave, all secured in saddlebags that would hang from her chestnut mare. Dr. Chen observed from the cot, propped up with pillows. Her recovery had been remarkable, perhaps testament to the efficacy of Nijoni's herbal treatments, though Eleanor's scientific mind still sought measurable explanations. You're leaving more behind than you're taking, Dr. Chen noted, watching Eleanor hesitate over a framed medical diploma. Just things, Eleanor replied, setting the diploma aside. Harvard seemed impossibly distant now, a world of brick buildings and gaslit libraries that had never prepared her for the harsh realities of frontier medicine. A soft knock interrupted her packing. Lieutenant Cooper entered, removing his hat. Ladies, we should depart before noon. My scouts report increased activity north of here, possibly the same men who attacked Dr. Chen's stagecoach. I'm nearly ready, Eleanor assured him. How's Dr. Chen's mount prepared? Gentle mare, smooth gait, Cooper confirmed, though I still have reservations about moving her so soon. Dr. Chen straightened, wincing slightly. My head is healing. The vaccines must reach the reservation before more lives are lost. Outside, hoofbeats approached. Cooper tensed, hand moving to his sidearm, but relaxed when Sheriff Miller appeared in the doorway. You've got company, Miller announced, his expression unreadable. Town's gathering. Thought you should know. Eleanor nodded. After 3 days, Of pointed silence from most of Willow Creek's residents, she'd expected some kind of farewell, though whether it would be a confrontation or something else remained to be seen. "Time to face the music," she murmured, more to herself than the others. Miller's weathered face softened. "For what it's worth, not everyone agrees with the council's decision. You've done good here, Doc." He extended his hand. "If circumstances were different." Eleanor accepted the gesture, feeling the calluses on his palm. "Thank you, Sheriff. For what it's worth, I understand why many find my methods challenging." The sheriff tipped his hat. "Safe travels, Dr. Blackwood." Outside, Eleanor found a small crowd gathered around her cabin. Unlike 3 days prior, there was no anger in their stance, no condemnation in their expressions. Martha O'Sullivan stood at the front, little Maggie by her side. Behind them, Eleanor recognized patients she'd treated over the past 6 months. Mr. Willard, whose crushed hand she'd saved from amputation. The Peterson twins, delivered safely during a difficult birth. Even Hank Peterson, his stitched wound, healing cleanly. Martha stepped forward, a wrapped package in her hands. "We brought you something, Doctor." Eleanor unwrapped it to find a quilt, not the elaborate kind made for show, but a sturdy traveler's quilt, pieced from practical fabrics. "For cold nights on the trail," Martha explained. "Some of us sewed a bit of ourselves into it." Looking closer, Eleanor recognized scraps from Martha's apron, from Mrs. Willard's curtains, even a piece of Maggie's Sunday dress. "I don't know what to say," Eleanor managed, throat tight with unexpected emotion. "Some folks don't speak for all folks," Martha said firmly, with a pointed glance toward the mayor's office. "What you did for my Maggie, for all our families, we won't forget." Little Maggie darted forward, pressing something into Eleanor's hand, a small, whittled wooden horse. "Pa made it," she whispered. "So you remember us." These gestures of genuine gratitude struck Eleanor more deeply than the town council's rejection. She had made a difference here, despite everything. Dr. Hampton and Mayor Collins watched from the boardwalk in front of the Mercantile, their disapproval evident even at a distance. But they were outnumbered this morning by those who had come to wish the doctors well. As Lieutenant Cooper's men brought the horses around, Eleanor caught Dr. Hampton studying Dr. Chen with poorly disguised curiosity. Perhaps even he couldn't deny the effectiveness of her combined treatment. The realization gave Eleanor a flicker of satisfaction. Within the hour, their small party set out. Eleanor and Dr. Chen, Lieutenant Cooper with 6 soldiers, and Nijoni, who would guide them as far as the mountain pass before returning to his duties. The town receded behind them, growing smaller against the vast landscape that had always made human concerns seem petty by comparison. "You're quiet," Dr. Chen observed when they paused to rest the horses at midday. "Having second thoughts?" Eleanor gazed back at the distant smudge that was Willow Creek. "No, just wondering what might have been had I found a way to bridge the gap between their expectations and my methods." "Some gaps can't be bridged in a single lifetime," Dr. Chen replied. "My father spent 40 years practicing in San Francisco. Even then, many white patients would only consult him when desperate." Eleanor studied her companion. Despite her injury, Dr. Chen sat straight in the saddle, her composure remarkable. "Yet you followed his path anyway. Why?" "Because healing transcends boundaries." Dr. Chen adjusted her hat against the sun. "And because each patient who overcomes their prejudice makes the path easier for those who come after us." They made camp in that evening in a sheltered arroyo. As night descended, Nijoni built a small fire, carefully arranging stones around it in a pattern Eleanor recognized as deliberate but couldn't decipher. "Protection circle," he explained, noting her interest. "Keeps bad spirits away while we sleep." Lieutenant Cooper divided his men into watches. "We're still in territory frequented by those raiders," he reminded them. "Everyone stays alert." Eleanor tended to Dr. Chen's wound, applying fresh dressings and a small amount of Nijoni's herbal poultice. The injury was healing remarkably well. No signs of infection, swelling reduced, the patient alert and clear-eyed. "Your Apache medicine seems effective," Eleanor admitted to Nijoni as they shared coffee by the fire. "I'd be interested to understand the mechanism of action in these plants." Nijoni's expression remained impassive, but his eyes crinkled slightly. "Harvard doctor wants Apache to explain medicine." Eleanor felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I didn't mean you learn by doing, not just words," he interrupted, not unkindly. "Nyanesgani teach you plant spirits, not just plant parts." Later, as most of the camp slept, Eleanor found herself unable to rest. She sat beside the dying fire, journal open in her lap, documenting Dr. Chen's recovery and sketching the herbs Nijoni had used. If these treatments were effective, they deserved proper study, perhaps even publication, though she imagined how her former professors would scoff at native remedies. Lieutenant Cooper settled beside her, offering a blanket against the desert. "Night's chill. Thank you for arranging this escort," Eleanor said quietly. "Professional courtesy," he replied with a slight smile. "Though I admit personal interest as well. Few physicians would risk their reputations to incorporate native treatments." Eleanor looked up from her journal. "You seem unusually open-minded for a military man. 4 years stationed in this territory teaches humility," Cooper said. "Western medicine failed my wife during childbirth. An Apache midwife saved her and our daughter." The revelation shifted Eleanor's understanding of his support. "Where are they now?" "Back east with her parents." Something complicated crossed his face. Sarah couldn't reconcile herself to frontier life after everything. Before Eleanor could respond, Nijoni materialized from the darkness. "Riders coming." Not friendly. Cooper was on his feet instantly, rousing his men with hand signals. "How many?" 8, maybe 10, Nijoni replied. "Same direction as stagecoach attack." "The vaccines," Dr. Chen whispered, suddenly beside Eleanor. Cooper made swift decisions. "We'll split up. Dr. Blackwood, you and Dr. Chen go with Nijoni. He knows routes the raiders won't. My men and I will draw them away." Eleanor gathered her medical bag and the precious vaccine case. "That's too dangerous. No time to argue," Cooper cut her off. "Saving those vaccines is the priority. We'll rendezvous at Cottonwood Spring tomorrow if possible." Within minutes, Eleanor found herself on horseback, following Nijoni up a narrow game trail barely visible in the starlight. Dr. Chen rode between them, jaw clenched against the pain of the jarring movement. They heard gunshots in the distance, Cooper's men engaging the raiders. Eleanor fought the urge to turn back, reminding herself that the lieutenant was right. The vaccines were irreplaceable. They rode through the night, Nijoni leading them along secret paths that seemed invisible until they were upon them. As dawn approached, they reached a high ridge overlooking a sweeping valley. "Rest horses here," Nijoni decided. "Watch for Cooper's men." Eleanor helped Dr. Chen dismount, concerned by her pallor. "How's your head?" "Throbbing," Dr. Chen admitted. "But I'll manage." As the sun rose, they scanned the valley below for signs of pursuit. Instead, they spotted a single rider approaching, Lieutenant Cooper, his uniform torn and blood-stained. "What happened?" Eleanor asked as she helped him dismount. "Where are your men?" "Separated," Cooper grimaced as Eleanor examined a bullet graze on his arm. 2 dead. Others fell back to Fort Huachuca. The raiders were better armed than we expected. Military rifles, not common weapons. Dr. Chen exchanged a significant look with Eleanor, as if they had official support. "Or official indifference," Cooper agreed darkly. Nijoni, who had been studying the distant landscape, pointed north. "More riders coming. Different direction." Through Cooper's field glasses, Eleanor made out a small group approaching from the direction of the Apache territories. "Are they Apache scouts?" Nijoni confirmed. "My people. They help us reach Nyanesgani safely." Within the hour, They were joined by 5 Apache men who conferred briefly with Nijoni in their language. The discussion appeared heated at times, with occasional glances toward the white members of their party. "Problem?" Cooper asked when Nijoni returned to them. "Reservation very sick now," Nijoni replied grimly. "Many children already dead. Chief's son also dying." Dr. Chen clutched the vaccine case tighter. "We need to get there immediately." Nijoni shook his head. "You still weak. Vaccines still need doctor to use them right. We go to Nyanesgani first, like planned. She helped make you stronger for journey. She also knows special medicine for smallpox treatment, not just prevention." Eleanor felt torn between immediate action and strategic patience. Her medical training emphasized urgent response to epidemic conditions, yet she recognized the wisdom in ensuring both doctors were fully capable before proceeding. "How far to Nyanesgani's canyon?" she asked. "1-day ride," Nijoni replied, "with fresh horses from my people." As they transferred their essential supplies to the fresh mounts provided by the Apache scouts, Eleanor found herself studying the distant mountains. Somewhere ahead waited a healer whose knowledge bridged worlds, much as Eleanor herself was attempting to do. Dr. Chen appeared beside her, expression resolute despite her obvious fatigue. "You're wondering if we're making the right choice." "People are dying while we delay," Eleanor admitted. "And many more will die if we arrive unprepared or are intercepted by those raiders," Dr. Chen countered. "Sometimes the direct path isn't the wisest." It was a lesson contrary to everything Eleanor had been taught at Harvard, where direct intervention was the cornerstone of modern medicine. Yet as she secured her medical bag to her new mount, a sure-footed pinto with intelligent eyes, she acknowledged that frontier medicine required adaptability her professors had never imagined. They set out again as the sun climbed higher, following a route that took them deeper into territory Eleanor had only seen, marked as unexplored on military maps. The landscape grew more dramatic, towering rock formations, hidden springs surrounded by unexpected greenery, ancient petroglyphs carved into canyon walls. "The old ones lived here long before white man came," Nijoni explained when Eleanor paused, "to examine a series of symbols depicting what appeared to be healing ceremonies. They knew plant medicine, star medicine, water medicine." "Star medicine?" Eleanor inquired. "Some plants only gather power under certain stars," Nijoni replied matter-of-factly. "Nyanesgani will show you." As afternoon faded toward evening, they entered a narrow canyon where the sound of water grew louder with each step. The trail descended between towering rock walls until suddenly opening into a hidden valley. A lush oasis nestled within the harsh landscape. A small stream wandered through groves of cottonwood trees. Stone structures, partially built into the canyon walls, blended so naturally with the surroundings that Eleanor nearly missed them at first glance. Carefully tended gardens contained plants she recognized from her medical studies alongside many she'd never encountered, and seated before the largest dwelling, as if she'd been expecting them, was an elderly woman. Her silver hair was braided with feathers and small shells, her lined face a map of experience. She wore a dress that combined elements of Apache design with Spanish colonial influence, and around her neck hung an unusual pendant, a silver amulet, containing what appeared to be both a Christian cross and indigenous symbols. "Nyanesgani," Nijoni greeted her with evident respect. The old woman's dark eyes moved deliberately from face to face, lingering on Eleanor's medical bag, on Dr. Chen's healing wound, on Cooper's military bearing. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly strong, her English accented but clear. "So, Harvard medicine comes seeking Apache wisdom at last. Apache wisdom at last. Apache." Eleanor felt the weight of Nyanesgani's assessment, a gaze that seemed to penetrate beyond her professional exterior to the doubts beneath. She stepped forward, medical bag in hand. "I'm Dr. Eleanor Blackwood. This is Dr. Margaret Chen and Lieutenant James Cooper. We bring vaccines for the smallpox outbreak at the reservation, but you bring questions too. Nayenes Ghani finished for her. Always questions with white doctors. Come inside. Night brings cold to these mountains. The healer's dwelling surprised Eleanor. She had expected something primitive, but the space was thoughtfully arranged, part living quarters, part apothecary. Dried plants hung from ceiling beams, organized in a system Eleanor couldn't immediately decipher. Smooth stone bowls of various sizes lined hand-carved shelves, alongside clay pots sealed with beeswax. A small fire burned in a central hearth, smoke rising through a cleverly designed vent. "Sit," Nayenes Ghani directed, indicating woven mats around the fire. "You journey hard to find old woman. Why?" Eleanor glanced at Dr. Chen, whose complexion had grown alarmingly pale again during their final ascent to the canyon. Dr. Chen was attacked while bringing smallpox vaccines to the Apache reservation. Her head injury is healing, but not asking why you come to mountains, Nayenes Ghani interrupted, asking why Harvard doctor thinks she needs Apache medicine. The directness of the question caught Eleanor off guard. She considered her response carefully. "Because my medicine isn't enough," she admitted finally. "Not for the injuries and illnesses I've encountered here. My training, it has limits I never recognized until I came west." Nayenes Ghani's weathered face remained impassive, but something in her eyes softened. "First honest answer from white doctor I hear in many years." She turned her attention to Dr. Chen, examining the healing scalp wound with gentle fingers. "Nijoni used devil's claw and datura, good medicine, but you need more for journey ahead." While the healer prepared a fresh treatment for Dr. Chen, Lieutenant Cooper excused himself to check the perimeter with the Apache scouts. Eleanor took the opportunity to observe Nayenes Ghani's methods closely. The older woman worked with practiced efficiency, selecting specific plants, crushing some with a stone mortar, steeping others in hot water. What fascinated Eleanor most were not the ingredients, many of which she recognized from her own research into botanical medicine, but the methodology. Nayenes Ghani approached each plant with reverence, murmuring words that might have been prayers or simply acknowledgments. "You watch closely?" Nayenes Ghani commented without looking up. "Good, but eyes only see part of medicine." "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked. "Harvard teaches you to see plants as chemicals, yes? Parts that make people better or worse." The healer applied a poultice to Dr. Chen's wound. "But plants are living beings with spirits. They give healing power if asked properly, with respect." Eleanor had heard similar sentiments from Nijoni, but had categorized them as cultural beliefs, rather than medical principles. Now, watching the precise care with which Nayenes Ghani handled each element, she wondered if there might be practical wisdom embedded in such perspectives. "How did you learn your medicine?" Eleanor asked. Nayenes Ghani's hands never paused in their work. "From my Apache grandmother and Mexican grandfather. He was doctor trained in Spain, both healers, but different paths. I learned both ways, then found my own path between." After Dr. Chen had been treated and settled onto a comfortable pallet, Nayenes Ghani beckoned Eleanor to follow her to a small adjoining chamber. Here, illuminated by the soft glow of tallow candles, lay what could only be described as a medical library, albeit unlike any Eleanor had seen before. Alongside handwritten journals and botanical drawings were objects Eleanor recognized from European medical tradition: a brass microscope, surgical tools of Spanish design, even several bound medical texts in Latin and Spanish. But these shared space with indigenous artifacts, medicine bundles, intricately carved gourds containing seeds, and stone tablets inscribed with what appeared to be dosage measurements. "You're surprised?" Nayenes Ghani observed. Yes," Eleanor admitted. "I didn't expect that Apache healer would use microscope, that medicine woman would read Latin." Nayenes Ghani's tone contained no judgment, only a hint of amusement. All knowledge is medicine if used wisely. She selected a leather-bound journal from the collection and handed it to Eleanor. My grandfather's notes on combining Spanish and Apache treatments. He wrote for 40 years, many diseases, many cures, some failed, some succeeded. Eleanor opened it reverently, finding meticulous documentation of case histories, treatment protocols, and patient outcomes. Methodical research that would not have been out of place in a Harvard medical journal, yet incorporating elements her professors would have dismissed as folklore. "This is extraordinary," she breathed. "Is just medicine," Nyanesgani corrected. "No walls between ways of healing, only in doctors' minds." When Lieutenant Cooper returned, Nyanesgani served a simple meal of corn, beans, and roasted roots. As they ate, she questioned them about the smallpox outbreak, its timing, spread pattern, and the political currents surrounding it. "Evil medicine," she pronounced when they'd finished their explanation. "Disease used as weapon is oldest warfare. Romans poisoned wells. Europeans gave infected blankets. Now someone does same to my people for land." Cooper shifted uncomfortably. "As an army officer, I can't officially acknowledge such claims without evidence. But as a man, you know truth," Nyanesgani responded, unperturbed. "No matter. We fight. Disease first, then those who spread it." She turned to Eleanor and Dr. Chen. "Vaccines good medicine, save many lives. But some already sick need different medicine. I show you tomorrow. Tonight, you rest." Before dawn, Eleanor was awakened by gentle movement in the dwelling. She found Nyanesgani already at work, grinding ingredients by the rekindled fire. The healer acknowledged her with a nod. "Harvard doctor rises early. Good. Much to learn today." For the next several hours, Eleanor received the most unusual medical instruction of her career. Nyanesgani moved between traditional Apache remedies and techniques that reflected European influence, explaining each while demonstrating its application. She showed Eleanor how to prepare a treatment for smallpox symptoms, a combination of herbal antivirals, fever reducers, and compounds to prevent secondary infections. "This prevents scarring," she explained, indicating a salve made from prickly pear, aloe, and other ingredients Eleanor couldn't identify. "This help breathing when pox fills lungs." Another preparation, this one administered as steam. Dr. Chen joined them later, her color improved after a night's rest. She examined Nyanesgani's treatments with professional interest, occasionally noting similarities to traditional Chinese remedies her father had employed. Different lands, similar plants, same purpose, Nyanesgani observed. Body needs same healing everywhere. By midday, both doctors had filled notebooks with formulations and techniques. Eleanor found herself particularly intrigued by Nyanesgani's diagnostic methods, which combined careful physical observation with questions about dreams, appetites, and emotional states, a holistic approach that considered elements Harvard had taught her to dismiss as irrelevant. "You learn quickly," Nyanesgani told Eleanor as they prepared medications to take to the reservation. "But still think too much. With head, not enough with hands and heart. Medicine needs all three. At Harvard, we were taught that emotional detachment ensures better medical decisions," Eleanor countered. Nyanesgani's expression suggested she found this notion absurd. Can doctor truly heal what she refuses to feel? Would you trust physician who never touched patient's pain? The question lingered with Eleanor as they prepared for the journey to the reservation. Lieutenant Cooper had conferred with the Apache scouts and planned their route to avoid the raiders they now suspected were operating with support from certain territorial officials. As they packed supplies and medications, both the vaccines and Nyanesgani's treatments, the healer approached Eleanor with a small leather pouch. "For you," she said, placing it in Eleanor's hands. Inside, Eleanor found a collection of seeds, each variety carefully wrapped in cotton and labeled in Spanish and Apache. "Seeds for medicine garden," Nayenes Ghani explained. "Plants that heal many sicknesses, some rare now, hard to find. You grow them where you settle." Touched by the gift's significance, Eleanor looked up. "Thank you, but I don't know where I'll settle. You will know when time comes," Nayenes Ghani replied with certainty. "Land will speak to you, as it did to me many years ago." To Eleanor's surprise, Nayenes Ghani prepared to accompany them to the reservation. "My people need all medicine now. Apache, Harvard, Chinese." She secured a walking stick and small pack with the vigor of a much younger woman. 4 healers, better than 3. Their descent from the canyon and journey north was tense but uneventful, guided by Apache scouts who knew every hidden trail. As they traveled, Eleanor found herself increasingly drawn into conversations with Nayenes Ghani about specific cases she'd encountered in Willow Creek. Patients who had died despite her best efforts, conditions that had confounded her Harvard training. For each, the elder healer offered insights, sometimes confirming Eleanor's approach, often suggesting alternatives that combined traditional knowledge with modern understanding. "Land sickness needs land medicine," Nayenes Ghani explained, when Eleanor described a miner who had died from a respiratory condition her textbooks couldn't identify. "Desert dust carries unique dangers. Local plants carry matching cures." They reached the reservation as dusk fell on the second day. The sight that greeted them sent ice through Eleanor's veins. Outside, many lodges burned small fires, the traditional signal that illness dwelled within. Women moved between these dwellings, carrying water and medicines, their expressions grim. Men stood guard, faces haunted by an enemy they couldn't fight. With conventional weapons, they were met by the reservation's headman, Grey Wolf, his normally proud bearing bowed by exhaustion and grief. When he recognized Nayenes Ghani, hope flickered across his features. "You have brought the old medicine," he said in English, then noticed the vaccine case Dr. Chen carried. "And the white man's medicine, too." "Both medicines," Nayenes Ghani corrected. Working together, they were led to the largest structure, which had been converted into a treatment space. Inside, on pallets arranged in rows, lay the sickest patients, most displaying the telltale pustules of smallpox in various stages. Many were children. Eleanor set aside her exhaustion and fear of contagion. She had been vaccinated years earlier, as had Dr. Chen. Lieutenant Cooper reluctantly remained outside with the scouts, acknowledging that his presence might not be welcomed by all. Through the night, they worked side by side, vaccinating those not yet infected, treating those already ill. Eleanor administered Nayenes Ghani's preparations alongside standard medical care, while Dr. Chen combined techniques from 3 healing traditions. Dawn broke to find Eleanor kneeling beside a young boy no more than 7 years old, his small body ravaged by the disease. According to his mother, he was the chief's son, and he had been the first child to fall ill. Despite their combined efforts, his breathing had grown increasingly labored through the night. "He dying," Nayenes Ghani said softly, joining Eleanor. "Some cannot be saved, even with all medicines together." The resignation in the healer's voice sparked something in Eleanor, a rejection of the inevitability of death that had driven her to medicine in the first place. "There must be something more we can try." Nayenes Ghani studied her intently. "Perhaps, but dangerous medicine, not for those who fear spirits." "Show me," Eleanor insisted. What followed tested the boundaries of everything Eleanor had been taught about medical science. Nayenes Ghani directed the preparation of a strong decoction, using plants Eleanor recognized and others she didn't. But it was the administration that challenged her most, accompanied by a soft chant, specific movements, and the burning of cedar in a pattern Nayenes Ghani demonstrated with precise instructions. Eleanor's rational mind protested, yet she followed the healer's guidance exactly. As the sun climbed higher, the boy's breathing gradually eased. By midday, his fever had broken. Nyanesgani nodded with satisfaction. "You have healer's hands now, not just doctor's mind." That evening, as they continued their work among the sick, a commotion arose outside. Lieutenant Cooper entered, his expression tense. "Riders approaching," he reported. "Not Apache, not military. 8 men heavily armed." Grey Wolf conferred rapidly with his warriors. "We will defend our people." "Wait," Dr. Chen interrupted. "If these are the same men who attacked my stagecoach, they're not just raiders. They're likely connected to whoever deliberately spread this disease." Eleanor thought quickly. "We need evidence to prove the connection, to show who's really behind this outbreak." For the next hour, they prepared. When the riders arrived at the edge of the reservation, they found what appeared to be a scene of desolation. Bodies covered in blankets, feeble smoke from dying fires. A picture of a community devastated by disease. From their hiding place, Eleanor watched as the men dismounted, their leader scanning the scene with binoculars. "Looks like our job's mostly done," he called to his companions. "But we'd better make sure. Check those bodies, make sure none are faking, then we'll burn the place like we discussed." The evidence was damning. Confirmation of deliberate genocide for land acquisition. As the men moved forward, they found themselves surrounded by warriors who had concealed themselves strategically. Lieutenant Cooper stepped into view, his army uniform a stark statement of official presence. "Gentlemen, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and biological warfare against civilians," he announced, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent compound. What followed was inevitable. Some men surrendered, others drew weapons and died for their choice. Their leader, a man Eleanor recognized with shock as a territorial official who had dined at Mayor Collins' table in Willow Creek, was taken alive. Documents found in his saddlebags completed the evidence chain, letters connecting him to certain mining interests, to Dr. Hampton, and to officials who stood to profit from Apache removal. The conspiracy reached further than any of them had suspected. As the prisoners were secured for transport to Fort Bowie, Eleanor returned to her patients. The crisis wasn't over. Many still suffered. Some would still die. But they had stopped, both the disease and those who had weaponized it. 3 days later, with the worst cases stabilized and the vaccination program well established, Eleanor stood with Nyanesgani outside the treatment lodge. "Where will you go now, Harvard doctor?" the healer asked. Eleanor gazed across the reservation to the mountains. "Beyond, there are other communities that need medical care. Places between worlds like this one." Nyanesgani nodded approvingly. "You find new path now. Not just Harvard medicine, not just Apache medicine. Your medicine." From behind them, Dr. Chen approached. Her recovery was complete, her purpose fulfilled, with the delivery of the vaccines. Yet something had changed in her as well. "The Army's establishing a proper medical facility here," she reported. "They've asked me to oversee it. Apparently, a Chinese-American doctor who incorporates traditional medicine is now considered an asset rather than an embarrassment." She turned to Eleanor. "They've requested a second physician as well, one with knowledge of both Western medical practice and local healing traditions." Eleanor felt the weight of the seed pouch Nyanesgani had given her. "Are you offering me a position, Dr. Chen?" "A partnership," Chen corrected. "Equal colleagues bringing different knowledge to the same healing work." Before Eleanor could respond, Lieutenant Cooper joined them, holding a telegram form. "News from Willow Creek," he said, extending it to Eleanor. "Thought you'd want to see it." The message was brief but significant. Dr. Hampton had fled town after the conspiracy was exposed, his connection to the raiders revealed. The town council, facing public outrage, had voted unanimously to invite Dr. Blackwood to return with full privileges and apologies. Eleanor folded the telegram thoughtfully. 5 months ago, that invitation would have meant everything to me. And now, Cooper asked. Eleanor looked to where her medical bag sat beside Nyenesgani's medicine bundles, to the seeds she would plant in new soil, to the people whose lives had been saved by combined wisdom rather than divided knowledge. Now I understand what my professors at Harvard never taught me, she said quietly. That true healing happens at the boundaries, between traditions, between cultures, between what we know and what we have yet to learn. She turned to Dr. Chen with newfound clarity. I'd be honored to join your practice, not as Harvard's representative, but as a doctor still learning the medicine this land requires. As sunset painted the mountains in shades of amber and gold, Eleanor Blackwood, no longer an exile, no longer merely a doctor trained in distant halls, began to unpack her seeds. She would plant them tomorrow, beginning a new garden of healing, in soil that had once seemed foreign, but now felt increasingly like home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. Spring arrived in the high country with explosive vibrancy. Hillsides blanketed in wildflowers, cottonwoods unfurling tender green leaves, the air itself carrying the scent of renewal. In the garden behind the newly established clinic, Eleanor knelt in the rich soil, carefully transplanting seedlings from Nyenesgani's legacy. Devil's Claw needs more sun, the elder healer advised, moving with surprising agility despite her years. Sacred datura must grow apart from food plants. Their spirits do not mix well. Eleanor adjusted the placement accordingly. 6 months since they'd unmasked the smallpox conspiracy, and still Nyenesgani found her assumptions wanting. Each correction was a reminder of how much remained to learn. The Army Patrol returns today, Dr. Chen called from the clinic doorway, her practical braid now adorned with a single eagle feather, a gift from Grey Wolf for saving his son's life. Lieutenant Cooper's messenger arrived an hour ago. Eleanor brushed soil from her hands, conscious of a flutter of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. James Cooper's monthly visits had evolved from official Army business to something more personal, though neither had spoken of it directly. He's bringing the legal documents for our clinic charter, Eleanor replied, keeping her tone neutral despite Nyenesgani's knowing smile. Washington has finally recognized us. The clinic itself stood as testament to their unlikely success. A sturdy structure combining Army engineering with traditional Apache design, round windows positioned to maximize healing sunlight, walls thick enough to keep the interior cool in summer, warm in winter, separate spaces for Western medical procedures and traditional healing ceremonies. Even the sign reflected their integrated approach: Dragoon Mountain Medical Clinic, Eastern Science, Western Wisdom. Inside, patients from 3 worlds converged: Apache families, settlers from outlying homesteads, and soldiers from the reorganized Fort Bowie Command. Most came seeking conventional treatment for injuries or common illnesses. Increasingly, however, patients arrived asking specifically for the combined medicine. Eleanor and Dr. Chen's evolving practice of integrating multiple healing traditions. "Rider coming," Nijoni announced, appearing at the garden gate. Once Cooper's scout, he now served as the clinic's guardian and guide, directing patients from distant settlements through the sometimes treacherous mountain passes. Eleanor shaded, her eyes against the morning sun. A single horseman approached at a hard gallop, not Cooper's measured pace, nor the relaxed riding of the Apache. The rider's urgency suggested emergency. "Prepare trauma supplies," Eleanor told Dr. Chen, professional instincts overriding personal disappointment. The rider, a young ranch hand Eleanor recognized from a homestead 20 miles south, nearly fell from his horse in exhaustion. "Doc Blackwood," he gasped. "It's Marshal Miller from Willow Creek, shot bad. They're bringing him in a wagon, but I rode ahead, maybe 2 hours behind me." Eleanor's heart constricted. Sheriff Miller, one of the few from Willow Creek who'd shown her respect. "What happened?" "Ambush," the young man explained between gulps from the water Nijoni offered. He was escorting the territorial judge to the hearings about that smallpox business. Somebody didn't want them testifying. The conspiracy's tentacles still reached far, despite the evidence they'd uncovered. 3 territorial officials and 6 hired gunmen awaited trial, but clearly some powerful interests remained threatened by justice. "How many wounded?" Dr. Chen asked, already inventorying supplies. "Just the marshal, ma'am." His deputies drove. The attacker's off, but he took 2 bullets. Eleanor's mind shifted into the precise, focused state that emergencies demanded. "Nijoni, prepare the surgical space. Dr. Chen, we'll need chloroform and the new antiseptic wash." She turned to Nayen Isgani. "Would you prepare the wound-healing poultice, the one with yarrow and bee balm?" The old healer nodded, wordlessly gathering her tools. 2 hours later, a wagon appeared on the horizon, accompanied by riders in army blue. Cooper's patrol had intercepted them. Eleanor waited on the clinic porch, surgical apron already tied around her waist. The wagon rattled to a stop. Cooper jumped down first, his face grave beneath his regulation mustache. "Dr. Blackwood, multiple gunshot wounds, significant blood loss. He's been asking for you specifically." Miller lay on blankets in the wagon bed, his normally robust frame diminished by pain and blood loss. His skin held the gray pallor Eleanor had come to associate with critical cases. 1 bullet had shattered his left shoulder. The second had entered his abdomen, the latter a wound that Harvard medicine considered almost invariably fatal. "Bob," she said softly, using his first name for the first time as she assessed his condition. "I'm here." His eyes fluttered open. "Knew. If anyone could patch me up, it'd be you, Doc." "Save your strength," she advised, then turned to Cooper. "Help me get him inside. Gently." What followed was a brutal test of everything Eleanor had learned, both at Harvard and in the Shire. Months since meeting Nayen Isgani, the abdominal wound had perforated the intestine, creating the deadly risk of peritonitis that claimed so many gunshot victims. Working in seamless coordination, Eleanor and Dr. Chen performed surgery, while Nayen Isgani prepared treatments too. In combat infection and support healing, the elder healer chanted softly as she worked, calling on plant spirits and ancestral wisdom, while Eleanor wielded scalpel and suture with Harvard precision. Cooper remained outside with Miller's deputies and his own men, establishing a protective perimeter around the clinic. The ambush made clear that the conspiracy's architects still wielded deadly influence. Hours later, Eleanor stepped onto the porch, exhaustion etched in every line of her body. Cooper approached immediately, concern evident in his eyes. "He's alive," she said before he could ask, "but the next 2 days will determine if he stays that way." "You've done everything possible," Cooper assured her, his hand briefly touching her shoulder. Eleanor looked up at him, struck by the genuine understanding in his expression. "Have I? Harvard would say I've abandoned scientific protocols by incorporating Apache medicine. The reservation elders might say I've diluted their traditional healing with Western ideas." "And what do you say?" Cooper asked quietly. Eleanor considered the question as twilight settled over the mountains. "I say medicine isn't about protocols or traditions. It's about healing, by whatever means necessary." She gestured toward the clinic, where Nayen Isgani and Dr. Chen maintained vigil over their patient. "In there, we're not practicing Western medicine or Eastern medicine or Apache medicine. We're creating something new, Cooper's expression softened. That's why Washington finally approved your clinic charter. The Army surgeons reported your success rates are unprecedented for frontier medicine. He hesitated, then added, though I suspect they've omitted the details about chanting and plant spirits from their official reports. That drew a tired smile from Eleanor. Probably wise. Some beliefs change more slowly than others. Speaking of changing beliefs, Cooper said, reaching into his saddlebag, I brought something else besides your charter. He handed her a newspaper, the Willow Creek Gazette. The headline stopped her breath. Town Council formally apologizes to Dr. Blackwood. Beneath it, a smaller headline read, Dr. Hampton implicated in conspiracy against Apache peoples, faces federal charges. Eleanor scanned the article with growing astonishment. Mayor Collins, facing his own legal troubles for connections to the conspiracy, had resigned. Martha O'Sullivan now served as interim mayor, the first woman to hold such a position in the territory, and the town had unanimously voted to invite Eleanor to establish a practice in Willow Creek, offering a building and full funding. They're a bit late, she remarked, handing the paper back. Are they? Cooper asked. You've proven everything. You set out to prove that a woman can be an exceptional doctor, that medical wisdom exists in many traditions, that healing transcends the boundaries people create. I didn't set out to prove anything, Eleanor corrected him. I just wanted to save lives. And yet you've done something far more significant, Cooper persisted. You've created a model that could change medicine throughout the territories. Eleanor hadn't considered the broader implications of their work, focused as she'd been on each day's challenges. Now, hearing Cooper articulate it, she recognized the potential impact of what they'd begun. Inside the clinic, Miller stirred restlessly, fever rising as infection battled with the combined medicines they'd administered. Eleanor returned to work, applying cool compresses infused with fever-reducing herbs, while Dr. Chen monitored vital signs. Nyanesgani observed from the corner, her ancient eyes taking in Eleanor's technique. You use doctor hands, but healer. Heart now, she noted approvingly. Two-spirit medicine. Two-spirit, Eleanor questioned. Apache way of saying someone who carries two natures, the elder explained. Very powerful, very rare. Throughout the night, they worked in shifts. Near dawn, Miller's fever broke, a critical turning point. By mid-morning, he was conscious, enough to take broth infused with strengthening herbs. Cooper entered as Eleanor was checking Miller's wounds for signs of infection. To her satisfaction, the angry redness had receded, and the tissues showed healthy healing much faster than conventional. Treatment would produce. Dr. Blackwood, Cooper began, more formal than usual in the patient's presence. I've received new orders from Fort Bowie. The territorial governor is establishing a commission to investigate the health conditions on all reservations. He's requested that you and Dr. Chen serve as medical advisors. Eleanor looked up sharply. The territorial government wants our advice? The same government that ignored the smallpox outbreak until it became a scandal? Different governor, Cooper clarified. Washington replaced him after the conspiracy evidence came to light. The new administration seems genuinely committed to reform. Miller, weak but alert, spoke up. Take the position, Doc. Change happens from within. Eleanor exchanged glances with Dr. Chen, whose slight nod conveyed agreement. We'll consider it, she told Cooper, but our clinic remains our priority. Later, as afternoon shadows lengthened across the garden where her medicinal plants now flourished, Eleanor found Nyanesgani watching a distant eagle soaring above the canyon. Eagle medicine, the elder observed, sees far, carries messages between worlds. Eleanor followed her gaze. The Territorial Commission wants us to help improve medical care on all reservations, to teach other doctors to use both traditions. Nyanesgani nodded slowly. Time comes when keeper of knowledge must become teacher of knowledge. But remember, some will resist new medicine as Willow Creek resisted woman doctor. I'm well acquainted with resistance, Eleanor replied with a wry smile. And now you know how to overcome it, Nyanazgani said. Not by fighting old ways, but by creating better new ways. That evening, as Miller rested comfortably and the clinic quieted, Eleanor found Cooper sitting alone on the porch, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "You never mentioned your wife in Denver," she said, settling beside him. "Is she still waiting for your return?" Cooper's expression held no surprise at the direct question. "Sarah and I finalized our divorce last month. She's remarrying a banker who'll never ask her to live on the frontier." Eleanor absorbed this information, aware of its implications. "And when your current assignment ends?" "I've requested permanent posting to Fort Bowie," he replied, his gaze meeting hers directly. "I find I've developed connections to this territory that I'm reluctant to break." The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibility. Eleanor thought of the path that had brought her here, from Harvard's hallowed halls to rejection, in Willow Creek to this unexpected place of belonging. Every step, even the painful ones, had been necessary. "The Territorial Commission will need military liaison," she observed. "Someone who understands both worlds." Cooper smiled. "As I said, change happens from within." 3 days later, Miller was well enough to sit outside, his recovery progressing at a rate that had him questioning his own skepticism about Indian medicine. Eleanor found him in conversation with Grey Wolf, who had brought his son, now fully recovered from smallpox, to see the woman healer with 2 spirits. "Marshall's telling me about your early days in Willow Creek," Grey Wolf said, as Eleanor joined them. "How people feared your different medicine," Miller snorted. "Pure foolishness, though I was guilty of it myself at first." He looked up at Eleanor. "Town's different now. Martha's done good as mayor. Some folks even started asking why women can't vote, now they've seen one running things properly." Eleanor smiled at the irony. "Sometimes it takes a crisis to open minds." "Speaking of open minds," Miller continued, "that commission position, you taking it?" "Dr. Chen and I have decided to accept," Eleanor confirmed. "With conditions. Our clinic remains independent and will train apprentices from both Apache communities and medical schools." Grey Wolf nodded approvingly. "Good medicine should spread like seeds in wind." Later that afternoon, as Eleanor tended her expanding garden of healing plants, she reflected on the unusual path that had brought her to this place. Harvard had given her knowledge but not wisdom. Willow Creek had given her challenges but not purpose. It was here, in this unlikely crossroads between worlds, that she had found what she truly sought, not just a place to practice medicine, but a place to advance it. Nyanazgani joined her, moving carefully between the rows of plants, many now strong enough to harvest. "Garden grows well," the elder observed, "like your medicine." "Our medicine," Eleanor corrected gently. The old healer smiled. "Soon just medicine again, as it was before men built walls between ways of healing." From the clinic doorway, Dr. Chen called to them. A new patient had arrived, a pregnant settler woman experiencing complications, brought by her worried husband, who had heard about miracle treatments at the Dragoon Mountain Clinic. As Eleanor washed her hands in preparation, combining Harvard's insistence on cleanliness with Nyanazgani's respect for the coming new life, she caught her reflection in the clinic's window. The woman who looked back bore little resemblance to the rigid young doctor who had arrived in the Arizona Territory a year earlier. That woman had believed medicine came from textbooks and laboratories. This woman understood that healing emerged from something deeper, from the wisdom of generations, from respect for different traditions, from the courage to question one's own certainties. She had come west believing she would bring modern medicine to a backward frontier. Instead, the frontier had expanded her understanding of what medicine could be, not Eastern or Western, traditional or modern, scientific or spiritual, but a seamless integration of all healing wisdom, focused on the patient rather than the protocol. As she stepped into the examination room, where Dr. Chen was already attending to the nervous young woman, Eleanor Blackwood finally understood what Nayan Esgani had been teaching her all along. True healing wasn't about where knowledge originated, but about how it was applied, with skill, with humility, and above all with the recognition that every tradition held pieces of a larger truth. The frontier had not abandoned her for being too educated. It had challenged her to become truly educated in the ways that mattered most. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us,